right, cool. Let me see. Let me change the settings. Jesus, it had sent it to the host
Or
for
is it?
you. Let me see. Chat. Okay. Jesus, you mind dropping your LinkedIn in the chat again?
Oh, it should be in there.
It went to host only.
Oh, I see. I
Yeah.
see.
Yep.
Good call. Good call. See that always happens.
I know Zoom overly secure.
Change it to everyone. There we go.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. All right, cool. So we have the stream going. So like I said, super excited for today. This is day 3 of the GovTech Summit. And so in terms of everything that we're going over today, first we have Jesus Vidaurri, and he's going to be going over the state of the civic tech space. And then after that, we have Courtney Motyczka. She's going to be going over the top 3 tips for breaking into tech. And then after that, we have Kierra Dotson going over building agents with N8N. So that's a no-code platform for building out AI agents, which is pretty cool. And then from there, we have a talk from Terrence Battle, which is really going to be more of a workshop on why everybody should learn Claude Code, even if you don't know how to code. And then finally, we have Tamika Reed, also known as Women in Linux. She's going to be talking about Linux and infrastructure engineering, platform engineering, and how you can utilize your current skills and align them to supporting AI infrastructure in the future. So that's pretty much our overview of what we're going to be going over today for the last day of the GovTech Summit. And so for us to get started, Jesus, do you mind introducing yourself and just letting everybody know who you are and just your amazing background and your wealth of knowledge?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you, GovTechCon and the whole team for inviting me to be on this summit, this virtual day today. So excited for everyone to be here. I see we got a pretty packed crowd, 137. Wow, amazing. Um, well, my name's Jesus Vidaurri. I would say I've been in the talent acquisition and recruiting space for the last decade, a little bit over that now. And I started off my career in recruiting with a staffing agency. So I've been in tech recruiting my entire career. So I haven't recruited anything else other than tech. I've seen software engineers, data scientists, cyber, product, you name it, right? Everything under the sun that you can think of within tech. I've spent my career building out teams and finding talent for IT organizations. And so, as I mentioned, I started off in staffing. I got into corporate HR, corporate recruiting, spent a few years there. And then out of the blue, I got the most random call, or I should say the most random message on LinkedIn to come work at the White House, at the U.S. Digital Service. So I'm actually rocking my gear, RIP. Um, and so yeah, so I got randomly hit up by a recruiter from the U.S. Digital Service saying, "Hey, do you want to come work for the White House?" And I said, "Well, first off, I'm in Florida. Second off, me of all people, like why?" So I did a little bit of digging, found out it wasn't a Russian spy trying to bring me on and trying to get some info out of me. Not that they would get anything anyway, but it turns out, it was a legit opportunity, and I ended up joining the U.S. Digital Service. I spent 3.5 years there, and it was probably one of the most amazing experiences of my lifetime. And today actually, so as we all know, a lot happened at the start of the year, right? So there was a lot of major layoffs that happened in the federal government. I was affected by that myself at the start of the year. Started off my own consulting business, and now I'm actually consulting for the Department of Education right now. So a lot of twists and turns, but through it all, I would say that spans about most of my career, with the addition of like helping some startups currently, and also supporting a lot of nonprofits over the last couple of years, specifically within diverse minority specific groups, so like Blacks in tech, Latinas in tech. Diverse Attack, Render, obviously all those are huge organizations that I support, and of course GovTechCon. So that's my background. Yeah, I'll kick it back over to you, Simone.
Yeah, it's just been a crazy year, right? We nobody could have ever expected that out of all the agencies, he could have done that too. Like he would have did it at digital services. I mean, it's crazy, but I'm just glad that you're able to still support the industry with the Department of Education because you have a amazing wealth of knowledge. You know top tech talent and what top tech talent looks like in the government technology space. So since things have changed in this space over the recent years, how do you see the current state of the government technology ecosystem and civics in general?
Yeah, so I'll actually let me take a quick step back and I think one of the biggest pieces of context here that I'd like to provide is there's a big difference between like your traditional GovTech, which I think most people are accustomed to, and that's like your government integrators, contractors, DoD, right? So there's this like whole I would say like industry on this side that's still part of the public sector, and then you have what we call like civic tech, and I would say most of the time that's specific to like at the agency level, like civilian agencies. And what I'll go over today is that it's actually much more broad than that. And a lot of people don't even know that. And so to your question, Simone, the way I see the current state of this entire ecosystem is that I know earlier you talked about how, obviously the federal government has changed a lot, right? I think that's no secret. We see it on the media. We see it in our socials, right? There's a lot going on. A lot of volatility, a lot of, I don't know where my next paycheck's going to come or whether or not this next contract is going to be still up and running or not. And so what I think that has caused is actually a void that others need to fill, right? And so what I mean by that is there is a whole ecosystem of civic tech organizations out there that most people don't even know about. I mentioned the U.S. Digital Service. I mean, we were founded in 2014 because of Obamacare, right? Healthcare.gov, if anybody's familiar, it fell through, right? It was supposed to launch. A lot of people got on at the same time. It crashed, right? And that was a story of healthcare.gov. And so they called the U.S. Digital Service to come save it. And so that I would say like right around that time frame is when you really started to see this like mass creation of digital service like organizations, not just at agency levels, but across academia, across nonprofit, and even at the state and local levels. And so to answer your question, Simone, there's a lot of those organizations are now stepping up, right? They're seeing that at the federal level, there's this big gap, there's this void that now needs to be filled at the state, local level by nonprofits, by think tanks, by academia, right, universities. And that's what we're seeing today. We're seeing a lot of those companies try to fill that void. And quite frankly, the federal government is right now at this point in time, and depending on who you ask and what agencies are, what services agencies supported, but some of those responsibilities are actually being pushed into the states and local level. So they kind of have to, right? And so I think that's where we are today.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, with this shift that's happening now, right? Pretty much filling this gap of, hey, we need to modernize different systems and we need to figure out who's going to be the best technical talent to help us do that and help us achieve this. I mean, how does that affect like hiring and what type of skills these agencies and state and local governments are looking for and just that gap that they have like talent wise, really?
Yeah, that's a great question. So actually, somebody else I spoke to a few weeks ago asked me a very similar question, and I said, many states and many state and local governments have never really had to uh, think about their tech stack, right? Most of it was handled by vendors, right? Contractors, integrators, or the federal government, right? The federal government had their own internal tech teams that would do stuff. And so what we're seeing today is actually these organizations at the state and local level are being forced to create new jobs. They're being forced to create roles that can sustain the gaps that are now left, right? And so um, we're also seeing that with like those nonprofits that I mentioned, right? There's a lot of them out there, like Code for America, Coding It Forward. If you guys are familiar, there's another organization called Civic Match out there that works with state and local governments to match employees with roles. And so there's a lot of these organizations that are sprouting up even more now. And what they're doing is they're trying to find ways to take the talent that has left the federal government and replace them, right? And so, there's a lot of a lot of these organizations are just trying to figure it out, right? They've never, they've most of the times have had one software engineer in their entire team. The rest of it has been handled by a vendor. Now they're being forced to hire four or five more software engineers, right? Which is actually a lot cheaper for them because there's a markup when you have a contract, right? And a lot of the times these contractors are, I mean, they're paying an exorbitant amount of money for these employees, whereas there's a lower salary at when you're working directly for the state and local level, but you get more benefits, right? You get like pensions and other like 401k type things and other benefits that you normally wouldn't get as a private sector employee. And so again, to that point, a lot of the skills that we're seeing they're just, I mean, they're really leaning on folks like my colleagues and I who have spent time in the federal government and who have spent time with other digital service like teams to ask us, hey, what sort of skills do we need if we're trying to build X, Y, and Z, right? A good example of this is the U.S. Digital Response. So if you guys are familiar with the U.S. Digital Response, they're a volunteer-led organization nonprofit that focuses on getting technical talent and they actually do deployments in a way, right? So it's all volunteer. So, if you have the time and you have the ability to do so, I highly encourage you to look them up and try volunteering for them. But I'll give you an example. Like I actually just finished a project with them. I was volunteering for like 10 weeks, just to help out the state of New York, right? They had never hired a technical architect or a product manager. So they had these job descriptions that were completely outdated and unrelated. And so they brought myself and some other technical folks, another architect and a product manager, to basically go in and say, hey, here's how you should build the job descriptions. Here's how you should look at the talent. Here's how you should assess it and think about applying that once they actually get into the job, right? And so that's what we're seeing now. We're seeing more organizations like that reach out and say, hey, how do we do this so that we can get better at it?
Definitely, definitely. So, since you're seeing more organizations reach out with needing help trying to even just figure out job descriptions at the most basic level because they've never had to fill these roles before, what type of skills are these agencies looking for, state and local government agencies looking for? What type of roles are they looking for? And then what does the work look like nowadays, now that there's been so many shifts happening and changes?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say from a technical standpoint, or I'll break this down in a couple of different ways. From a technical standpoint, you have your traditional job titles that you would find in the private sector, right? So, software engineers obviously are in high demand always. There's just not enough of them out there. Highly skilled, engineers that I mean, you can't break these systems, right? People rely on these things, right? We're talking Medicaid, we're talking SNAP benefits, WIC, projects at the IRS, projects at the Department of Treasury, at the state level. You're talking about, organizations that provide funding for schools, right? So, I say that to say that like most of the times they're looking for mid to senior level folks, right? Because they need people with some battle scars, right? Who have done projects, built projects, broken some things, learned some things, and know not to break them again, especially in those environments. But so software engineers, data scientists, data analytics, data engineering, DevOps, site reliability, I would say are big, right? You're talking, systems that could have millions of people jump in at the same time. You need to have that uptime going, right? So you need to have really solid servers and sustainability on the reliance of those systems. Cybersecurity, of course, never goes away. That's between cybersecurity and AI, you will not see those jobs go away for the next 20 to 30 years, mark my words. Um, and of course, like product and design, extremely important. So if you're a UX, UI designer, product design, service design, those jobs are very heavy, right? Like wireframing, thinking about like researching, going out to the community, getting that research from the users, from the people that use these systems. and figuring out, okay, how do we design something that is equitable, that is accessible, that anybody could use no matter whether they're blind, deaf, paraplegic, whatever, right? Um, and yeah, and then again, I mentioned products. So I would say, like, from a technical standpoint, you have those skills. From a non-technical standpoint, for my folks out there who aren't as technical, there's actually a lot of opportunity in this space as well, right? What I would consider non-technical are things like procurement. Procurement, can have some flavors of technical, right? Looking over contracts and looking over the legalities of everything, like that's huge. Folks in operations, right? So like understanding how systems work and integrating everything. Policy, of course, we're talking about governments here, so policy is very big, and especially if you have experience with tech policy. So like those kinds of things are extremely important in the civic tech ecosystem, and those are the types of roles I would probably think about if you're still trying to figure out like, hey, how do I get into this space? Really try to take your skills and apply them in a way that like the biggest thing I tell people, especially when they want to get into civic tech, is it's not it's not never going to be about making the money. Right? I'll tell you that right now. So if you want to join civic tech, it's because you believe that the systems that you're going to build and or protect and or sustain is for the greater good, right? It's for the people that use these things. And so, it's not about driving profits or building the next Apple iPhone, right? It's about can this mom get SNAP benefits for her babies, right? Or WIC for her babies? Can this student get a loan to go to school, right? Those are the types of things you want to think about as you're thinking about, well, how do I get into this? Because I'd say like that is the last thing I'll say is the interpersonal skills. You got to have a lot of empathy. You got to have a lot of you got to be very oriented, right? So volunteering, going to nonprofits. Like when we look at resumes, that's the stuff we look at, right? We look at folks that have done like worked at the Peace Corps or did some time that wasn't for themselves, right? I would say that's a big factor that is taken into account when looking at people's resumes.
Yeah, definitely. So I just want to kind of make it clear because everybody knows I talk about GovTech like as a whole, just government technology. And I would say like civic tech is a subset of GovTech, but it's more focused on, like you said, like for benefits, SNAP, VA, right? Those type of things, right? So because somebody literally asked me yesterday, they're like, I don't know why you say GovTech when you really just mean defense tech. And I'm like, no, like government technology, all of it as a whole, right? Not everybody supports DoD and IC, right? A lot of people support things that don't even require clearance, and just like you said, are on the civic tech space. So, for the people that do want to do this type of work, that like to volunteer, that want to make a difference in this type of way in the world, they definitely should be looking at civic tech. And then I saw some people ask about, do you see like Linux type of roles and system administrator type of roles? I'm sure you do on the civic tech
Yeah.
side.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, I would say like, those roles aren't going to go away. I mean, what I will say is I would, if you're in that space, right? Because I used to recruit both networking and server administration type folks, systems admins. And what I will say is you really want to make sure that you diversify yourself in the skills that you obtain when it comes to that sort of work, right? And so what I mean by that is, right now, today, there are still a ton of servers. There's still a lot of Linux servers out there, Microsoft servers. Those things, it's going to take a while before we can fully take everything. I mean, granted, the cloud, our servers are just living somewhere else. But what I'm saying is like be specific to those technologies, but also figure out, okay, what's trending, what is automation proof, and what is what will be sustainable 5, 10, 15 years from now, right? And so looking ahead, like, okay, if networking is going to be handled, let's say by a robot, like should I still be doing cabling and get my CCNA, CCNP? I don't know, maybe you should pivot to the cyber side of things, right? And focus on maybe penetration testing or something that's like still a networking but more specific to maybe cyber because that's a little bit more recession proof, right?
Yeah. And there's also a lot of data centers too, right? So I think that's where people have to focus on too, is like there's the skills are still needed. You just have to kind of know like where is the demand headed, right? So a lot of that demand is headed to data centers. Really, I mean, it's overwhelming data centers, right? Like an overwhelming amount of demand there.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly my point, right? Like, I would say it's getting to the point where like you won't see as many data centers in-house at organizations. They will be massive farms, hosted by Google or AWS or OpenAI, right? I mean, AI is taking a ton of energy and a ton of server space, right? Storage and capacity. And so, yes, we still need those skills. But what I'll say is that if you're thinking about smaller to mid-sized organizations, they're no longer sustaining their own servers. They're farming it out, right? They're saying, "Hey, let me have AWS handle that for me so that I can focus on deploying my applications, right? Doing more on the software side internally versus the networking system side." Um, so
Yeah,
yeah.
that makes a lot more sense, right? Because just because, like you said, like for on the state and local side, the teams are smaller, right? They cannot do everything in-house. So that's where they rely on their partners. And that's where I've seen Google does a lot of work with state and local government, right? So they do a lot of work there. And so can you give us a tangible example of the impact that civic tech has made, or maybe just something that you did at your time while you were supporting the White House at US Digital Services?
Man, that's tough. If I had to give you one or two even, I mean, like we did so much great work, and I'll give you a few examples. I'll give you the two that I think most people would know about, and that's, online passport renewals. So our team was actually responsible for that at the State Department, where we actually, now if you go to the State Department, you want to get your passport renewed, guess what? You don't have to do it. You don't have to send in through the mail anymore. You could just do it online and it gets shipped to you, right? So if you haven't tried that service, try it. I think it still exists. I think it's still operational.
It is still around. I just got my passport renewed and it was super fast. I got it like same
But
day, not online, but I had to do some stuff online. I was like, oh wow, this has changed
no,
a lot over the years. Like the tech systems, everything. It's
yeah,
an
yeah, yeah.
advancement for sure.
So that's one, the IRS direct file. I think that's might be on the chopping block, but for you to do your taxes directly through IRS and not TurboTax, that was huge. That was one of the biggest undertakings I think that our country and any agency has ever taken on. I mean, we're talking, it took 25 years to get that out of the private sector, and that should have always been a free service, right? I should have never had to pay TurboTax $200 to do my taxes that then I had to pay IRS for. Um, so that's huge. But I'll leave you with one of the most impactful ones that I think for me, like it changed my life and changed my whole outlook on what you can do in this space. And that was during COVID. So I got hired in 21, right after COVID. And I don't know if anybody remembers, but during that time frame, I think it was like early 21, um, there was also a baby formula shortage, massive formula shortage that mothers couldn't find, how they were going to feed their babies, and we were running out of stuff, right? Because manufacturing plants, like there was all kinds of stuff, right? If you remember back in those days. And I remember we deployed a team that actually was responsible for figuring out how do we get formula here faster? How do we get it shipped in faster? How can mothers track that stuff so that they can like go to the right store and make sure that they get the right formula for their kids? Because not every kid could just drink any sort of formula, right? Some kids were susceptible to, certain allergies and certain things. And so, I mean, you had legit people's lives on the line, babies dying from this stuff. And so, we found ways to deploy a team that may have not sound as technical, but behind the scenes, there was a lot of like technical stuff that people had to think through. And I mean, that changed my whole outlook on civic tech and just like, when you focus on the outcomes, you could really actually change people's lives for the better. Yeah.
Yeah, so that you definitely work on amazing projects while you were at US Digital Services, and I'm sure you're going to continue to do amazing work throughout the rest of your career as well. So, I know we see AIs here, we see all the things that have happened with this administration. So, I guess before we leave and wrap up, why is civic tech still important, and why should people want to get into civic tech instead of like defense tech and supporting the IC? Why is it still important?
Yeah, I mean, I think for everything that I just mentioned before, right? I think, everything that we're doing or that we do in civic tech is for the better of society. And if you believe in that, right? And if you really feel like in your heart, like, hey, I want to find a way to use my tech skills for good, like this is the one chance to do it, or multiple chances if you decide to make it a career. But and I would say like it's more important now than ever, right? I mean, especially when we have um, uh, we have opinions. I'll just put it that way, of who deserves what and what should go where. And at the end of the day, it's about creating equality. It's about creating equity and accessibility for the things that really are human rights, right? Everybody deserves to have a roof over their head, food in their bellies, a place to sleep at night, and a safe place to be an American. And so like that's what this work is about. It's about creating those infrastructure and places for to really do good work and ensure that people all have access to these services. So.
Definitely, definitely. So if people want to get involved on the civic tech side of GovTech, how do they get started?
Oh man. So maybe I'll just send you a whole list of things, or I am on the
Yeah.
Discord, so
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can probably
definitely
drop
send
them
them
on the
over.
Discord. If you guys have questions, I know we're out of time now, but feel free to shoot me a message on LinkedIn. I'm happy to also share some stuff there. But there is a whole multitude of things. I'll share a few in the Discord, and with you, Simone, personally, I just share a whole list of things that I know, and hopefully that gives people some paths on where to go.
All right. Thank you so much, Jesus. Yeah, I'll share the list with everybody. Definitely appreciate you taking your time. Jesus was supposed to come to GovTechCon, but he's got a lot of things going on in his life. He's got a lot of important things he's got to handle on the civic tech side. So everybody, say thank you to Jesus for coming out. We appreciate you, all your knowledge, everything that you've done, and just wishing you more success and more impact that you're making in the US and really the entire world, right? Because that's another thing that I think that people don't realize is that the work that we do in this industry, it impacts people all over the world, right? There's US citizens everywhere. So all of this work is global work. So everybody said thank you in the chat. Thank you so much, Jesus. And if you don't mind dropping your LinkedIn in the chat again one more time, so that way they can connect with you. And I'll send out this link to everybody. Whatever Jesus shares with me, I'll share it with you all as well.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of the night.
All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much, Jesus. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, let's see. I know Courtney's in here. Hey, Courtney, there you are. There you
Yes, I
are.
am. Hello.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks for coming out, Courtney. So
Yeah,
we have
absolutely.
our next panel or fireside chat, really. Courtney's going to be talking about the different ways that you can break into tech. So 3 tips for breaking into tech. And Courtney, you can just take it over from here. Could you let us know, who you are, what you do, all the great work that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So my name is Courtney Motyczka. I am the Career Success Manager at Yellowtail Tech. I have a combined 10 years of experience working in hiring, higher education, and professional development and training. I've been working with Yellowtail Tech for about a year and a half now, but I've been in the career coaching space for over 7 years. So I'm a certified career coach and resume writer. And I've been working with job seekers, career transitioners for a long time, people transitioning into tech as well. So I know we don't have a ton of time this night, so I'm going to give you a quick overview of some of the different tips, some of the most successful transitions that I've seen into tech, specifically moving into the GovTech space. As we do tech training at Yellowtail Tech, we've seen lots of people transition into GovTech from all different kinds of fields. Um, so I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in. The primary thing that I wanted to highlight tonight, which I know Jesus just talked about quite a bit, and I will be talking about more on Saturday at GovTechCon, is mastering your soft skills. This is something I see so regularly overlooked as people transition into tech. I know that learning tech is a very intense process. I know that it takes a lot of time, but oftentimes people let go of some of those soft skills in that transition. So if you're in a transitional period right now, I encourage you to ensure that as you are learning your technical skills, that you're also practicing your soft skills. This will help you get ready for interviews, will also help you prepare for when you're in your career to level up, right? You cannot be a leader without soft skills. So practicing talking tech as you're getting ready to go into that interview stage and to level up is going to be critical in your training. So one of the most critical pieces of transitioning into tech and mastering the soft skills specifically is to create a plan. I know Jesus has talked quite a bit about some different positions, some different ways you can get involved in the tech community. I know Simone talks about regularly different positions that you can have within GovTech specifically. So creating a plan is super critical so that you can have a strategic path into that transition, right? One of the things you want to do when you're creating that plan is identifying transferable skills. And this is not limited to hard skills or technical skills, but also your soft skills as well, as this will help you to identify how you can really focus on those accomplishments that you've had in prior fields as you're moving into the tech space. Okay. So if you haven't already started your transition into tech, but you know that you want to be in tech and you know you specifically want to be in a GovTech space, now is a great time to start researching companies that will sponsor clearance or that you can get into on a lower level to get that clearance to make your transition a little bit easier. You don't have to have clearance to transition into a GovTech role, but it's a great way to leverage yourself as you're moving into that environment. I encourage all of you, especially as you're coming up on, hopefully a lot of you actually attending GovTechCon, right? Read through job descriptions for companies that you are anticipating that you would like to work for or positions that you would like to work for. This will help to identify the transferable skills that you have that you can bring into that role and also the skills that you can easily build on, right? So that you can really stand out when it comes to the job market. We know that it's competitive. We know that there are some things that are seeming a little unsure right now. So identifying those soft skills that you can use to leverage in your technical skills is a great way to start planning the basics and knowing what direction you want to go into. The second tip I have for you tonight is to build and diversify your network. I cannot stress this enough. In the past year, we've had a lot of placements at Yellowtail Tech, and every single one of them have utilized their network in some fashion or another, specifically through LinkedIn, to help them secure their position as they transition into tech. This also includes anybody who has transitioned into GovTech. There's a lot of people out there who are already in this space and willing to help people transition as they go. You're going to have a lot of exposure to those people through GovTechCon, right? And also the summit that we're doing tonight that has been going on for the past few days. Now is a great time to start learning who is somebody that you may be able to reach out to get some of that additional information, that insider insight, so that you can get a little bit more of a leveraged network to make your transition a little bit easier. Don't underestimate broader networks, even outside of the recruiter space. Oftentimes, people really focus on recruiters. You'll see on LinkedIn, recruiters typically have pretty high following counts, right? And recruiters are fantastic to get those tips and tricks. They're in the hiring space. They know some of the things that you should really look out for, right? But there's also a lot of people that make up these different companies, specifically in GovTech, right? We have some pretty large employee counts in GovTech. So don't be afraid to reach out to people that are in the technical spaces outside of just the recruiting space. Technical recruiters, again, are wonderful for those tips and tricks. You may even be able to get a message through to them. I know a lot of people are trying to message them and get through to them. So you won't be the only one, but also reach out to those who are already working in tech. You may also be able to connect with somebody who is in the hiring decision maker position, right? There's multiple levels to interviewing and recruiting. So make sure that you are diversifying your network so that you can get some different perspectives and different opportunities. There's also the side part of this, right? Of looking at who works in that company. Maybe they're not even in tech, but they may be willing to keep an eye out for you on roles that could be open. And having a referral in can be a great way to have an idea of who you're going to be interviewing with. So, a lot of people on LinkedIn specifically are willing to help you to locate that role, but you have to be able to put yourself out there a little bit, which again, this goes back to your soft skills, right? So, really effective networking relies also on your soft skills that you'll be utilizing later on in your career. Also, cold connections. I want to talk about this for a little bit, as I know that for a lot of people that are career transitioning or job seeking, sending a connection request with a message becomes really intimidating, especially if you're sending multiple connection requests in one shot. Like right now, you guys are probably sending a lot of connection requests, hopefully, especially when you do networking events and things like that. You don't necessarily have to message those connections right away, especially if someone is in an event where they're probably getting multiple connection requests at one time. You can send that cold connection request and leave the messaging for later. Let them connect. You can like posts, you can react with their posts, you can add comments, right? Establish your name in their network and then send the message so that they have an idea of who you are. This is a good way to develop rapport before that message even gets to them. So don't underestimate the cold connections. Right now, you're all in a networking opportunity. In that chat that's going on, I saw earlier a couple people dropped their LinkedIn URL. I just dropped mine earlier. So feel free to connect with me, but drop your LinkedIn URL. Even if you don't have a profile that's 100% completed, 100% there yet, that's okay. It doesn't have to be for you to develop those connection requests, but I highly recommend that you work on it before you get to GovTechCon so that you have everything that you need. But you should drop those LinkedIn URLs. You may find that there are other job seekers in that chat, right? And job seekers working together is great. We know that searching for a job can be a little bit, what do we want to say? It can drain you quite a bit, right? You might reach that burnout pretty quick. But create a network of people who are also looking for different roles. Maybe switch it up. Let them know what position you're looking for, what area you're looking for, and you can swap searches. You never know what other people may come up with in terms of job search technique, ways that they can help to support you. You can start a shared Google spreadsheet. Utilize that network to really work on your behalf. Maybe somebody already found a job, but they come across a role that may be a good fit for you, right? Or maybe they're still getting messages from recruiters after job searching for a little bit and would be willing to send you over to that recruiter, right? So you don't want to lose those connections, especially in this space. It's really important that you connect with people outside of just that one niche section of recruiters or in already established technical positions. Again, even though they're great to have, you want to have them in your network. You want to have that diversity too of people in all different spaces. So take the time right now, send a couple cold connection requests. I see there's a lot of LinkedIn URLs being dropped, which is great. Keep doing that. And take the time to meet up with your connections. Don't be afraid when you get to GovTechCon to meet up with each other, grab a coffee, hit a booth together, right? I will be there in person. You can come talk with me. I will be doing another presentation on Saturday. I know Thierry, our infrastructure director from Yellowtail Tech, will also be doing a workshop as well. So, don't hesitate to find a buddy to go attend these things with so you can develop that knowledge together. You can work together on building connections, on developing notes, right? And then you can trade notes afterwards. Conferences can be a lot, so use each other to help get through everything, get as much information as you can. And lastly, I want to touch a little bit on upskilling within the tech space. Okay. As you transition into tech, or if you're already in tech, it's maybe even more critical if you're already in tech. You want to learn how to learn independently. Okay. Learning independently can be very challenging. Again, this goes back to your network, right? Tech is ever changing, it's ever developing. Jesus talked about this as well. Learn skills in conjunction with other skills. You don't want to stay stagnant. Tech changes and you need to stay up to date with it. So if you're transitioning into tech right now, remember earlier I talked about checking out job descriptions. You want to look at the job descriptions and identify some of those skills. Usually there's a foundational skill that's required, like Linux. I saw someone asked about Linux, which is what we train for at Yellowtail Tech. Learning Linux and then wrapping up with a little bit of Windows foundational is a great way to help leverage yourself in the job market. There's other things that other components, right, that go into being competitive in tech. So make sure that you're reviewing those job descriptions, that you are able to upskill independently. That will help you to be able to transition quicker. And it'll also help you to leverage your career quicker once you get in there, right? So if you're already in tech, that should be something that you're regularly thinking about. What other certifications can you get, and how can you upskill within the space that you're currently in? Again, when you're reviewing those job descriptions, you're looking for soft skills. Take note of some of the relevant hard skills or technical skills that you can learn in conjunction with technical skills. Okay, so you're going to have those foundational ones, and then you want to add some other ones there on the side. This is something that you can do all throughout your career. It'll diversify your resume and it'll open up the opportunities for roles that you can find yourself transitioning into, not only right in the beginning, but later on as well. Okay. Lastly, I want to encourage all of you to find some study buddies. Again, this applies even if you're already in tech. Tech develops, it changes, there's new information a lot of times, and it's also extremely broad. So it's unlikely that you're going to master every aspect of it, especially overnight. It takes some time to get there. So finding people that can help to support you in your career and in your learning experience is really important. You started already networking now. I see my connection requests just went up quite a bit. So I know you guys are sending them. Hopefully, you're sending them to each other as well. Like I said, while you're at GovTechCon, take some time to organize a meetup or something that you can do to exchange information. You may get to a booth that someone else didn't get to, right? The same thing with technical information. You may have a skill that someone else is in the process of learning. This will really help you to solidify those soft skills. Being able to communicate your skills is just as critical as being able to do them. If I tell you that I am great at doing something, but I can't show you at all how I do it, tell you about how I do it, there's not that credibility behind it. So you want to make sure that you're practicing with others. It will really help you not only to connect and build your network, but it helps you to build credibility. Someone will be much more likely to refer you for a position if they have heard you explain to someone else how to do that skill, right? So working in a group together to develop that rapport is critical for when you're looking for either transitioning into a role or looking maybe for a new role from your current position. It'll really help to support you with interview prep. It'll help to support you with networking as well, especially if networking feels a little foreign to you. And it can also help you to leverage yourself within that field. An employee is wonderful. A good employee is great, right? But an employee that also has a network behind them that is involved is even better. And you heard Jesus mention that with the volunteer opportunities. Okay. So I know I'm coming up on my time, but just to wrap up, a reminder, work on those soft skills, focus on them, especially practicing them at conferences like GovTechCon. Meet the people around you so you can diversify your network and continue to upskill with that network that you have. I look forward to connecting with you guys on LinkedIn and also at GovTechCon. And please feel free to reach out to me with any questions. I'm really looking forward to seeing how you all grow and develop. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight, and thank you, GovTechCon, for having me. Looking forward to seeing you guys later this week.
Thank you so much, Courtney. You did that very efficiently. Thank you. You gave us a
Thank
lot
you.
of information and a lot of good career tips that I hope that people actually apply, right? When it comes to how you network at conferences, I literally just had this talk with like my VIP clients, like conferences are all about networking, right? it's all
Yeah,
about who's in the room. It like the companies are great, right? But they only have but so many recruiters. You might not even meet the person you need to meet. The recruiter that you might need to meet might not even be there. But it's about
right.
who's in the room, those connections that you make, growing your network, right? Once you get to the point where you have a strong network, you can get referrals from pretty much any company. So
Absolutely.
these are all great tips. We appreciate you for coming out. Connect with Courtney on LinkedIn. Also, if you're coming in person to GovTechCon, definitely go visit Yellowtail Tech's booth. They will be there. They're going to be giving out a lot of information, doing in-person, hands-on workshops. And Courtney will be doing another career talk as well. So you definitely don't want to miss those. And so if you can't come in person, since GovTechCon's in DC, you can also get a virtual ticket as well. All right, y'all. So today is going to be the last day that you can grab a virtual or in-person ticket for 50% off. And we don't have too many in-person tickets left. And we had a couple of VIP tickets open up. So if you've been thinking about coming, I would definitely say get your ticket today. And we would love to see you there. So thank you so much, Courtney.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
you.
Simone. Looking forward to meeting everyone. Have
Yes,
a good
looking forward
night.
to it. Thank you. All right, all right. So, next panelist that we have today, let me see. I think I got to get her camera back on. Is Kierra Dotson. So Kierra is a longtime friend of mine. If you all watched my Day in My Tech Life interview series, you probably learned about Kierra already, but she's done a lot more since then, right? Now you're an AI engineer. You're doing big things, even bigger things than what you were doing before. And you're here tonight to share with us more about AI. So I guess if you can just start out, just introduce yourself, and then I'll just let you take it from there.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for inviting me on here. Always happy to sit down and chat with you, Simone. But yeah, I am Kierra Dotson, a woman who does many things. I'm currently an AI engineer by day. I just started this new role, literally like last week. I have a background in DevOps and data. I have run a data consultancy, a career coaching firm called the Data Block. I also do a lot of speaking on data and AI, giving my first keynote at the beginning of October. And I also make data and AI content. I like to talk about technical concepts and breaking them down in relatable and digestible ways. I know it's hard to get in the field when there's a lot of gatekeeping with technical terms and jargon, so I try to simplify that stuff. Also, I'm a highly technical person, but I don't talk in like all that tech jargon speak. It's boring and it's weird. So I just built my brand off of just sharing my knowledge in like in a relatable way. But yeah, anyways, I know that I only have 20 minutes. This session is about to be jam-packed with stuff, so I'm gonna speed through. Walk with me. It's all right, we'll get through it. So let me share my desktop. One second. And then while I'm in the middle of doing that, essentially what we're doing is talking about NAN and how to become an engineer and walking through a workflow, a customer support workflow based off of that. So, let's see. Let's see if I can get this going. Share. Y'all can see my screen, I'm assuming.
Yes, yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, great. So yes, this is building agents with NAN. It's a cute no-code look at the AI engineering lifecycle. The whole point of me going with NAN is just so you can mostly understand the mindset behind being an AI engineer versus getting caught up in all the code that comes with that. So yeah, we're gonna walk through what an AI engineer is and then take a quick little, business use case and build out a workflow in NAN with that. So yeah, let's get started. So first, let's talk about what an AI engineer is. Essentially, it's a specialized software engineer who drives business value by creating and deploying intelligent, scalable solutions. So, I mean, you've heard of a lot of the solutions now. AI agents and chatbots are the rave, but you really want to focus on understanding the real world challenges that AI can address, and what's going to actually drive business value versus what's shiny and nice to look at, because that's where the real money comes in. And that's also how you prove your value and worth, especially in a world where we're seeing that AI is not giving the returns that CEOs think that it can. So you're going to be architecting those end-to-end AI systems. And of course, that might involve models, data, and also infrastructure. A lot of people don't tend to focus on this, but I say end-to-end for a reason. ML ops, LLM ops, and then of course agent ops, which is a term that I've really been driving home in my talks this year, are very important. I know that we typically think those are things are reserved for DevOps, but being able to thoroughly test your work is a core component of being a well-rounded engineer and an engineer that someone can trust and also pay a lot of money for. So this is ensuring your AI solutions are robust, they're performant, and also they hold up in production. So if something goes down, you should be able to debug and figure out what's going on. It should also work where there are, hundreds, thousands, millions of people using your AI agents and your AI systems on the day to day. And then lastly, very important, evals and iterations. So evals are essentially what we call test in software engineering world. And it's just basically, if you're using a chat bot that's entering in prompts, or you're talking to the chat bot and then making sure and understanding what's going on, what the thought process is behind the AI system that's going on, understanding kinks and what bugs there are, so that way you can fix those issues and improve the performance of your systems over time. Quick thing about products, because I know, as I said, we talk about AI agents and chatbots, but there are a lot more than just that and the types of AI engineering that you can run into. So, for instance, let's talk about computer vision. So computer vision is also, think about like manufacturing when there's quality control there. Like if you have cameras on assembly lines, you can detect if there are any issues with any type of products that are being made there. We also talk about NLP products. That's getting into like language processing and things like that. And then also predictive and forecasting models. You want to think about fraud detection and finance. For retail, is demand forecasting on, what are going to be the hottest trends and products that people are going to want to buy. You also recommendation engines that you use from like Netflix and Amazon. That's also a thing there as well. And then lastly, specialized AI applications, robotics. We see Boston Dynamics coming out with these really cool products, and these robots that everybody's playing with, and you see the videos and they go viral and all of that. We also have something called digital twins, which are like AI powered virtual models of physical objects and even systems, kind of like even simulating like a city's traffic network or like a factory and all the different lines, that the assembly lines that they might have going through. But that's basically running simulations and optimizing performance for that. So lots of different ways that you can specialize as an AI engineer. It's just that AI agents are at the forefront right now. It's the shiny new tool and trend. And yes, so next, let's actually put on our AI engineer hats and pretend that we're working at a major retailer. Let's say we're working at Nike, and they're actually having a big issue, which is a good issue to have, but it's a massive surge in like customer support inquiries. Everybody's emailing them left and right about issues with, general inquiries like shipping times, or even like, where's my order at? Or something even just like, refunds. I want a refund. So that bogs down the customer support into where they are burning out. There's a high over turnover because they are tired of working long hours. And because of that, the amount of time that it takes to service a customer and those customer support tickets is decreasing. So the decrease in customer satisfaction is there, scalability issues as Nike continues to grow with tons of products. That's more and more tickets down the line. It's not feasible to hire a million customer support agents. It's just not smart. And of course, with that, decrease in customer satisfaction means lost revenue. So the customer support team came to us and the product managers, and they say we need a solution that can scale, improve efficiency, and enhance the customer experience without too high of a cost. So we took some time to think about it, and we're proposing AI agent system or workflow that'll triage those customer support emails, answer any complex questions, and then also help with doing the refund process. And so the whole point of this is to augment the workflow that we have for customer success, not to replace our agents. We'll free them up for more complex tasks, such as actually going through with a fine-tooth comb and combing through those refunds or any other big important customer issues that arise. So first, we do want to think about agent design principles and how we're going to design this agent. One, we know that it has to be extremely efficient. So any repetitive tasks that agents tend to go through, we're going to make sure that we automate those. That way, the humans, they can do complex issues. Accuracy. This is where RAG comes in, which is retrieval augmented generation. Essentially, what that means is that you are taking context from any internal documents that you might have, customer support documents, or even, the facts that are on Nike's e-commerce website. You could put that all in a database for your LLM to access when they do need to answer any questions that a customer might have. The difference is the reason why you need to do this is because LLMs have general knowledge over a bunch of different topics, but it doesn't know the ins and outs of Nike's business itself. So that's why you hook up that database, which is and use RAG to make sure the LLM right information when it comes time to delivering and making decisions. Next, scalability. Of course, you want to make sure that you can handle a high volume of inquiries without it being extremely costly. And then lastly, which is the most important part in my opinion, is observability. So you're going to make sure that you're doing monitoring and logging to track the performance and then identify any areas of improvement for your agentic system. And then I believe that we're at the part where we can do the workflow. 1 second. Okay, so let me exit out. Y'all can still see my screen, I'm assuming. And then here we are here. So we have our NAN workflow. I know it seems very complex, but we're going to walk through this and it's going to be okay. So first off, our first thing that we configured is going to be our RAG database, right? So what happened is we have all of our customer support facts. I just made a dummy one here with just some basic questions. We have them inside of a Google Sheet. You might have this in like a Confluence document or something like that, whatever it is that you work when you're working at an enterprise level. But what you're going to do is you're going to hook that Google Sheet up to something called a vector store. That is basically your database where all of your context and your business information lies. And you're going to store all that information there. What happens is you turn all of that text into something called embeddings. And the reason why is because you want to have a special format and way that you store all that information inside the database. That way, when the LLM or your system queries or pulls to get information, it has a better understanding of how to search and make sense of all that information in there. Luckily for this one, I've already ran this workflow, so we already have a database with all the information that we've had from this customer support fact. And then we can actually go into our workflow. So we first start with our Gmail trigger. So this means the person sends in an email, and then we have an AI agent that basically is going to come and understand and parse through what the person is saying, and then divide it into 3 categories. It's going to be refunds, it's going to be order status, and then also some general inquiry. And then from there, we're going to have 3 pathways we can go, which, as we discussed before, general inquiry, refunds, or order status. So let's start with the general inquiry agent now. So this general inquiry agent essentially it's going to be friendly. You want to make sure that the tone and the behavior is there. So you're going to say it's a friendly, professional customer support agent, and they're there to just answer simple questions. They're going to be polite. They don't want to make up any information. And if they don't know something, they just apologize and say they're not able to find the information, and of course to contact or call in for more information. But essentially what this does is it's hooked up to that same vector store or that database that we talked about with our embeddings from our customer support facts. It'll pull in that information, and then based off of the information it pulls, it will reply to that same email with with a message with that information. Actually, I have my email set up, so let's simulate that. So here's a general inquiry. Right now, I have it saying, "Hey, send to the email. What's your shipping times?" If I press send right now, I'm gonna wait for it to come through because there has to be a trigger. Once it hits my inbox, we'll be able to see that there's a trigger to notify Nike of, hey, there's a new inquiry. So here we are now. If you fetch this test result, we see here that it says, what are your shipping times? So we did receive that email. And then if you execute this workflow, as you see now, the agent, it categorized it as a general inquiry, and then it moved over and saw that the general inquiry agent caught on to that as well too, and then already replied to a message. And as you can see here in our table, it's showing that it's sent. So if I go to my email here, I asked what the shipping times are, and then here our NAN agent went and replied and said our standard shipping time is typically 3 to 5 business days, which is what you see here from our facts. So this means that our agent did work in that regards, and that flow is good. So your second flow is going to be refund processing. And the same thing here, our initial agent is going to categorize the email as a refund. The refund processing agent goes and checks and understands more about what the refund is asking and if there's an order number. If there is not an order number, then it'll send an email out to the customer, ask for order ID. If there is one, then it goes into our nifty order number or orders database, pulls the order number itself, and it'll check some things such as like the item, the order date, delivery date, and if there's an order status. And then if the order does exist, it'll send a message to the actual manager of the refunds processing unit, and that person will either approve or deny the refund. And the reason why you want this human in the loop is because in case there's some type of special event or something in the event that there's a sale or either like it was a sale. You don't do refunds on sale items, or either it's a special item that you don't want to do a sale for. You don't want to automatically process a refund. So that's why you need that customer support agent, because they have specialized knowledge on whether or not that refund should be approved. And if it does, then you hook it up into Shopify or whatever refund processing system that you're using, and it'll update that charge. In the instance that a person does deny the refund, then of course there's an email that's also sent saying, hey, we're not gonna give you a refund. So let's actually walk through that as well. So go into my drafts here. Let's do a successful one. So we're gonna ask for a refund order for Nike, this order here. And then if you look in our database, it's literally this one. And they should, or let me find, it's the third one. So they actually just got this at the end of last month. They're within the 30-day time period that Nike has. And then so they should be able to get a refund. So if we send, I'm gonna wait for the trigger or wait for this email to automatically send. That way I can pull the trigger. And excuse me, y'all, I'm recovering from a cold, so I do have the sniffles. Fetch the event. As you can see, the email came in here where we do have a refund. Or we do have an email that says asking for a refund. Then we're going to execute this workflow again. AI agent parses through, switch, the refund agent takes it. We see that there are, yes, so we see that we were able to see there's an order ID. So I just received a message saying, hey, there's a refund for this order, and we need to review it. And in this case, of course, we can approve it. And then we approved it, NAN notices it, and then it goes to update the charge. I obviously don't have a order database hooked up, so it's not going to go through, but that would be what that flow would be like. And then the next one that we're going to do, and the last one, of course, is dealing with order status. So let's say that this person, they just had an order that was processed or put the order in a 7th, and it's still processing. They're confused on what's going on. So this person sent in an email asking about the order status. So let's send this. Same thing here. Our general agent's going to categorize what that email is. It'll send it off to the order status agent. It will go inside the Google Sheets, see that it's still processing an order, and then reply to that same message telling them what's going on. So let's verify. Okay. This trigger should be able to pull in the order status. We see it's here. Now we're going to execute this workflow one more time. Okay, and the AI agent took some time to figure out what was going on, but it did reply. So let's check here. And it says, great, I found your details, girly. Here's the order status, the order number. and it's telling you that your order is currently being processed in our fulfillment center. And it's working on getting your shoes ready for shipment, all the good stuff that you get whenever your order is ready, getting pre-processed and ready to ship. So this is a very general overview of what this workflow looks like. I don't want to give the impression that it's that easy. You do have to handle for certain things, like in this vector store. Let's say that a person asked a question such as, what is because it could get mixed up between actual refund and then also a return. So like, let's say I asked about what is a return policy. This workflow could accidentally understand or process this as I'm asking for a refund versus just asking for a return. And that's something that an AI engineer would have to work hard to make sure that the AI agent can tell the difference between, whether that's through doing fine tuning or adding even more context into a RAG document about what the different business logic is for, excuse me, for this agentic workflow. Same thing as well as dealing with any issues that are going on with a bunch of use cases. There's a lot of minute things that you have to think about, such as, okay, what if they never return an order ID? Somebody's going to have to eventually close out that thread of that support ticket. Or in the instance of somebody sending in multiple questions in the same email thread, you have to handle for state and memory management of that whole entire thing. So it's much bigger than just a quick snap and put together the workflow. There's a lot of underlying things that go on. And a good way to test this, besides what I'm doing here, if you're doing it programmatically, there's something called evals. And again, that's just testing. And that means that you're setting up different flows or an automated set of flow of questions to ask your system to make sure it's flowing and doing well. In here, a good way, the way I was just doing evals is just doing it manually like you saw here. But you can also look at your logs to see the entire workflow that this went through and what happened. So we started at the Gmail trigger. And you can see the snippet here of what was being asked. And then you can see the AI agent pulling in the workload from that Gmail as well too, as well as even the output, the input of what we told the system and how to behave, and then the output that it gave, such as, oh, it categorized this as as the order status. This is what we need to send it to the order status agent. You can also see that we can, of course, pass this over to the next agent as well too, the order status agent. You see the system input as well. We'll see that it also went to Google Sheets to get all the information it needed for the order status. We'll also see again the output that this agent gave in case we need to do, comb through with a fine-tooth comb to understand how it's behaving. And we can even see from Google Sheets what that exact output was without us having to go and actually go into the Google tools to see what's going on here. So there's a lot of investigation that also goes on behind the scenes to understand how these work. For instance, like here, my reply to the message says, great. I wouldn't want that. I want it to be a lot more friendly, like, hey, customer, thank you for your question, and so on and so forth. So this is the way that you get the, pierce through what's going on and then tailor your agent later on to respond exactly how you would like it to, based off of the tone and the branding that you do have for your business, whether it's Nike or any other client or customer or organization that you're working for. So that wraps up the bit for the workflow. I do have a couple of more things for you. So the last one is, the conclusion. So we've explored understanding what AI engineers do, seeing AI agent use cases. We walked through the business challenge, which was building out a customer support triage bot. We've designed our solution, and it's no code, and it uses NAN. So a lot of people wonder what the fundamental skills are for AI agents or building out AI solutions as an AI engineer. Of course, you have your Python. I think that's the most important one. A lot of people are saying TypeScript now because it's more front end. Python is universal. It's used with a lot of frameworks. There's a lot of support in the community for Python. Highly recommend it. Of course, you're going to want to understand LLMs as well too, since that's the main driver for all of your agentic systems for the most part, unless you're dealing with ML. Agents are very important as well. And then prompt and context engineering. I understand that you can automate this stuff now, but it all depends on what company you work for. Some might have actual prompt and context engineers that'll hand this off for you. You always want to understand the fundamentals of everything you're doing just to be prepared for what you might have to work on explicitly at the company that you're at. RAG is also very important because a lot of companies have a lot of context, such as we did with Nike, that you can't, that small companies or either, of course, basic LLMs won't be able to provide. So understanding RAG and understanding that that is a core component of working with agentic solutions and even AI systems in the enterprise workspace is important. And then lastly, of course, LLM ops is your friend as well too. Business acumen is also very important for when you're wanting to stand out. You do need to understand the industry that you're going to be working for in and out. That way, you'll be able to identify opportunities for AI to add value because not every solution needs AI. For instance, if you've noticed Chick-fil-A, they decided not to do any AI for their drive-through systems. They get people out in the field. You have to go through, they stand out there and take your order. As you saw, Taco Bell tried to do an AI system for their drive-through. It's failed miserably. Chick-fil-A has been winning for years, and I do not understand why other drive-through companies, like fast food companies, don't mimic their model. It works, it's perfectly fine. They don't need AI, and it's actually more cost-effective that way. System design is also very important too, just to make sure that your systems are very efficient. LLMs, using inference, basically what your LLMs give you as output is very expensive. So understanding the best way to design these systems is very important. Data literacy is important too. Your systems are only as good as the data that the model's trained on and as good as the data that's fed into the RAG system as well too. Don't underestimate that. A lot of people think that they can just forget about data and move on to AI because it's popular. Data walks so AI can run. And quite honestly, data is winning at everything. And then also continuous learning. The AI landscape evolves rapidly, so staying curious is extremely key. Make sure that you are doing as much as you can just to understand what's going on. If you have the fundamentals, you start to understand what makes sense to pay attention to and what doesn't. I feel like I'm way over. Am I over time? I didn't even pay attention.
Yeah, you're a little over, but it's okay. That was all great. Everybody saying that this is dope. It was a great talk. You gave us a lot of great information about N8N for sure.
Perfect. Okay, great. But yeah, I can wrap up. Okay, because a lot of people might ask. Skills, courses on Coursera, Kaggle, and YouTube, very good for that. Portfolio projects, start something on GitHub. Go look on YouTube for examples of projects you can work on. Data sets, Kaggle, Hugging Face have a lot of those. Also, frameworks, AutoGen, Pydantic, and LangGraph. Those are really good to experiment with. And then also, if you don't have any coding experience, and even if you do, use Claude Code, Windsurf, Cursor, all of those to help you with building out your projects because it'll help you to iterate faster and learn faster. And then you can also plug that code into ChatGPT and other places to ask it to walk you through what's going on. You do need to know how to code at the end of the day because if it gives you some BS, you won't understand it until it's too late. So use that to help you learn and upskill and also to get in the door faster with projects. But don't think that that's going to be your shortcut to being a good engineer and paid well. And then also, I'll leave you with two books, Fundamentals of AI Engineering by Chip Huyen. Very amazing books, give you the ins and outs of how to be a well-rounded AI engineer. And then LLM's Engineer Handbook by Paul Utzon, also very good. But yeah, that is my spiel. I hope that y'all enjoyed that. You can catch me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at I am Kierra D. And then also the data block is where I do any data career consultations, AI career consultations, and then also DevOps. But yeah, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Kiara. We appreciate it. That was a great talk on N8N. I'm still trying to get my first agent going. So you definitely gave me some ideas myself on how I need to really be manipulating that. But I also see that I'm at the beginner level for sure. People on TikTok were making fun of me. They're like, you're on a blank N8N screen. I'm like, look, man, I'm just trying to get my first trigger going.
A lot. It's a lot more complex than people think, even though it's no code, because there's like 360 widgets you can use. It's ridiculous. So I get it.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you so much, Kiera. Thank you. I appreciate you. Yeah. Somebody said it reminds me of Zapier. Yeah, but way more intense, way more capabilities. So thanks, Kiera. Did you put your LinkedIn in the chat so people can follow
Oh,
you and connect?
yeah, let me do all that. Yeah, I can do that. I don't have to be up here though, right, to do all that.
Yeah, you're good. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks. All right, so next we have another AI workshop. So we have Terrence Battle. Let me see if I can pull him up really quickly. I think I had turned his camera off. Terrence Battle Hunt, excuse me.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
How are you, Terrence?
I'm
Appreciate you for coming out. We definitely are super excited to learn more about Claude Code and see everything that you have to present to us today.
all right, cool. Thanks, everybody. I'm gonna share my screen here, so I'm gonna. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep, yeah, we can see it.
All right, it should be
Up the
blank.
trees.
Yeah, it should be playing. And so, and can everybody hear me loud enough? Make sure this microphone is close. Can everybody hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Yep.
All right, perfect. So, thanks everybody. And we don't have as much time, so I want to make sure I get through it as fast as possible, so we can have some questions or some things at the end. So. The name of this talk is Claude Code for everyone else. So most of the people that are using Claude Code these days is mostly like developers and some other people. But if you work in infrastructure, you're a project manager, you're a Scrum Master, you're a cloud engineer or a Linux engineer, Claude Code has tremendous capability, and we're going to talk about that tonight. So who am I? I go by Dante Hunson, Notorious CSV on Twitter, but my actual real name is Terrence. I've been a network engineer for about 15 years across the public and private sector and in the federal sector. In DoD intelligence agencies for that most of that 15 years. I was in the Navy for about 9 years. And then I worked at NGA, DIA, some other intelligence agencies. In my free time, still doing jujitsu, still learning AI. I'm a dad involved in global affairs, and I like to cook. So let's just get right into it. What is Claude Code? I want us to think of Claude Code as your coworker who only works from the CLI in basic sense. That means that they are the people that want to log onto a router, they want to log onto a firewall, a switch, etc., and they only want to use the CLI. That is essentially what Claude Code does, except it has some other capabilities. It has access to your file system. It has API access or API integration, I would rather say. You can do web interactions. You have a context, which is the memory. So think of Claude Code as a engineer who works through a terminal, and it goes by a process that you can teach him. With that being said, if you don't teach it anything, it's not going to do anything. So it is essentially a jump box that you give a bunch of commands to that can help you achieve your goal. So it's going to be a little different than how people prompt today when you're doing your normal prompting. And we're going to spend some time on that. So agentic prompting, what is the difference between doing an agentic prompt or doing a regular prompt? So the big thing to remember for agentic prompting is that you may type on ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, DeepSeek, whatever, generate me a firewall configuration. Look at this document for me and tell me what's wrong with it. With agentic prompting, we have to be a little different. And what I mean by that is our agent or Claude Code in this case is just going to be executing commands, and it could kind of run off the rails. So some of the things that we want to do, we want to give Claude Code heuristics is what Anthropic calls it, but let's just call it your business logic, your rules and constraints. For me, I work as a network engineer. I don't make changes during production. So if I'm doing something with Claude Code, I should have an agent or my sub agents have the constraints. Do not make a change. Do not go into configuration mode. Go to this location to figure out if we have any open IP addresses. Open up a ticket in ServiceNow if we need to make a change. Your agents can also get access to tools. So you're probably hearing me say, where can I get an IP address from? How can I look at change control? How can I get access to Git? Claude Code does all that for you through the CLI. It has Git integration automatically there, and you can give it access to other things that you have. Now, you can also tell it what it cannot use. As an example, you may not want it to have access to financial databases. You may not want it to have access to customer saving things. You may not want it to have access to personnel records. And you can put all of that into your agents as you build them. So when it goes out to execute work, it does not make as many mistakes. So always make sure we're thinking of that when we're prompting our agents, and always think about how would we teach a intern, how would we teach a new employee on how to do things. We tell them where to find information, we tell them processes, et cetera, et cetera. Our agents also need that same level of detail. And that's where a lot of people run into some trouble at. So some best practices, and like I said, I'm speeding through this so we can get to our demo. Anthropic posts a lot of these on their website, and I was going to jump back and forth between their website, but this will be better. Anthropic, I'll leave a link to it actually at the end. You can get on the Anthropic site, and they leave best practices for Claude Code. They leave examples. They leave how they've done things in the past, and they're constantly updated. So that is actually an excellent resource. But I'm going to cover some of the best practices that I found. The Claude MD file is so important. I would say this is one of the most important files that you have. This is your auto context. This allows you to say what commands, any customizations you want to run, style guides, workflows, API guides that you have access to, so that this is automatically loaded into context as you prompt. Your tool allow list, we just talked about that before. These are the things that are pre-approved for us for safe operations. MCP integration, you can connect to Playwright. We're going to take a look at that later. I put Splunk like ICE and DNA Center, but you can use MCP with those even if they don't have an MCP server, and that's something that we're going to look at just as a weird use case. Use workflows. There are a tremendous amount of patterns that have already been done that allow you to take someone's existing work and iterate on it instead of trying to figure out how to work it yourself. There are patterns that we can use, and we're going to use an easy one here to build a workflow that we can automatically iterate with and test. Use test-driven development. So what that means in the case of an infrastructure engineer, you have show commands, you have other types of verification commands depending on a device. When you know that you need to make a change, let's just talk BGP, for example, you know what should be in your routing table when you're finished. So you should have what my expected output is at the end. We can use that output to say, okay, I know I should have these show commands. I mean, I know I should have these routing commands at the end. I can run those commands, and I can actually make sure that the work that my agent is doing is correct, so we can work in an iterative loop. So that's pretty much it. And I'm actually going to get to a demo. And the demo that we made, what we're going to do is we're going to make a new BGP peer. What we're going to have to do is we're going to have to go into our IPAM system to get an IP address. We're going to have to go into our routers to figure out if anything's open. And I'm going to run the command right now, but then I'm going to actually go pull it up so we can see what we've done. And now what I just have right here is adding our BGP peer to Cloudflare with this autonomous system and this IP address. And yeah, whatever, it looks kind of crazy, but we'll run it. And the first thing that we see that Claude does is it looks at putting it into a workflow. It has phases that it wants to do it. It has a change control that is going to create netbox. It's going to apply a BGP configuration to the edge router. It's going to test and verify. And as you can see my screen, it's actually starting to open up. And I want you to say like, wow, it can actually just log into a device. Now, typically, I would not do this through a screen scraper, but I wanted to have a visualization so that you could see how it actually worked. And so you see my hands are right here, but as you can see, it's going through the automation process on logging in and starting to do the work for us. And so it gets into our net box. It's going to go through all that other stuff and start helping us make our change for us. So generally, like I said, we would want to do this through a CLI or an API, but I think the visualization for most people gives them an idea of how this actually works. And so Does this make sense to most people? I'm actually going to cancel this, but you can see as it's going through the process to figure it out. Does this part make sense before I go and show how we actually built this and let folks ask me some questions before we end? Okay, I see the questions coming in. Let me take a look real quick. Okay, no, not too many demos. So I'm going to cancel this, but you get the idea. I would normally have this through the CLI or the API, but it's actually going out, filling everything out, and it's actually going through the process. You can also track it right here. Now, I did build it a little different so you don't actually see the sub agents rolling because I built it in the workflow, but I built the workflow in a couple of different phases, and it's just going to go through those and fill those out. But normally, like I say, I would not use MCP and Playwright. I just think the visualization made it more real for people. Generally, this would be through the CLI and it would be blazing through this. So let's take a look at how we actually built this. So let's take a look at the lab. So inside of here, I have the agents that I use and some of the commands that I used. And the command that we used was a add a BGP peer. And so in here, it just gives the peer, and then it says orchestrates a complete BGP peer. Just the normal instructions that I talked about. These are the workflows or the examples of the type of work that you can do. These are the tools that I want you to use. This is the change request that I want you to write. This is the configuration that I want you to make, et cetera, et cetera. So this is how we would do that work. And you would say, well, wow, I can just do this through another process, but we can have AI generate the majority of this for us. So when we go back here to our commands, our prefix list, we can grab these from our router. When Kierra was up here talking about RAG, we can get that through our databases or our RAG database or wherever we're storing our data for this side. So this is how we can get that done. The other question that I got is, well, how do I make sure that we're talking enough about BGP? How do I know it knows enough BGP? I have this folder right here, and I actually wasn't going to share this, but I changed my mind. I have this folder here called context. And if I need my engineer or my agent to have special skills, we can have the agent or our AI agentic agent go out and do research for us. So we've heard of deep research. We've heard of all these other tools that allow us to conduct a level of research. So I'm going to show mine. Like I said, I wasn't going to show it at first, but I might as well. So this is my deep research platform. I actually should not be showing my open router keys. I'll close that later. But what I built here was a lot of the work that I do on whether it's firewalls, whether it's I got a bunch of data in here from other stuff. Actually, I have a bunch of data down here for a bunch of things. And so what we do is we combine the data that we grabbed with research from some of the larger frontier agents, and we make vast research databases, and then we put that information into a way that our other agents can go and use it to do research. So that is the way versus a RAG that I'm using to do research for the topic areas that I work on, the projects that I work on. So I can use that to get the best practices for, in this case, for being a network engineer, the best practices if you're just doing BGP, something super specific, or best practices for change control, service management, et cetera, et cetera. I get those out so that if my agent runs into trouble or when the request comes in, we can take advantage of having my deep research module go out and pull that. So I did show that. That's one of the ways that you can do AI without the RAG. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back, and it's still crawling through this, but that is the basics of the most of how we can use agentic patterns, how we can use Claude Code to go further beyond what we would do as a network engineer, a systems engineer, a cloud engineer, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the final part about this is I would not want us to look at Claude Code as something that I would actually use for day-to-day operations as far as making a change like this. Claude Code is, like Kierra mentioned, your prototyping tool. So actually, once I got this finished and figured out, and I said, okay, this is how we add a new site or we add a new BGP peer, I'm going to use a smaller product like Pydantic AI with a smaller model. If I even have to use a model, I'm going to use Pydantic AI with something like a local model that we have so we can keep our data safe or things of that nature. So that's actually it in a nutshell of how I use Claude Code. This is how systems engineers, like I say, network engineers, cloud engineers can do a lot of this. So I'm looking through some questions because that's mostly it. And to access these features, we need a pro or enterprise version of Claude. I think on a $20 one, you get access, or $17, you get access to Claude Code. And with that, you can build any agentic feature that you want. Are there any other questions out there as I'm just going through these? Because that's pretty much it. I wanted to get through it as fast as possible so I didn't go over.
Kierra has a question. Her question's pretty good. She said, hold on, give me a sec. Where's her question? Which AI tool would you say is the most useful to reinforce what you're learning when studying for a certification exam outside of ChatGPT?
Oh, wow. So I actually, oh man, I hate saying it. So on my Ping to Pass application, which I have not relaunched, I actually used I used that deep research thing I just showed everybody, where I have my agents go out and conduct the research on in a certification exam that I'm getting ready to take. And so I'm able to get a lot of the information and I'm able just to query that. But if I didn't have access to that, I think, well, if you have a Claude account, you do have the research button at the bottom, which does something similar. And I think those are really good at not getting the exam, but actually getting the principle or the concept that you're trying to learn because it can access research papers. And I think Claude's research is excellent for that.
And then we'll take two more questions. So Diera said, for beginners, how would you suggest that people get started using Claude Code? Maybe trying to just start using the CLI and start, I guess building some of these agents.
Oh, okay, cool. So always start small and just ask Claude, like, hey man, what are you capable of? So for example, um if I go here, let's just back out and let's just go to um this is a demo I made for my daughter when she was just asking me how to build a website. And so you can just go to Claude and say, hey, like what can you do? And just start asking questions. Don't ask for definitive things. Just ask questions of what's possible, it's capable of, and it will start telling you things. And I will say Claude is pretty good about trying to stay on best practice. It can go a little crazy, but you can ask Claude a lot of things about its capabilities or what it can do. Also on the Anthropic site, which actually, let's bring that up. We actually will bring that up. On Anthropic's site, they do give access to their best practice. They have their guides on building effective agents. And then they also, on their GitHub, they post copies of their agents. They post access to it. And then, of course, the Claude Code documentation is pretty good. And they do have a quick start that I think everybody could use to just go through some things and do anything that you would normally do on ChatGPT. Try to do it on Claude to see if you like the experience. That was a pretty wordy answer. Is there any other questions?
I'll do one last question and then we can wrap from here. So Jessica said, I don't understand Claude much, but I saw Docker in the code. Like, do you have to use Docker to connect to your command line to start doing these agents?
Oh, so no. So that was actually the lab that I used. So I had a pretty massive lab built in the background, but I just thought that wasn't going to serve. That's just something that I have for the lab because these are actual real hold on, I'll show it since folks saw it. So did have a lab set up. So I had a couple of routers, a firewall, Redis, and all that stuff that you saw on the screen. There was actually a couple of routers and a couple of firewalls in the background that worked to make this change. So you do not need Docker. That was just something I used for the lab. You just need to access the CLI. What you do need to do to launch Claude Code is you do need to have Node.js installed, and that may be a hiccup for somebody, but it's literally right on my screen right now. Just copy this and do the install. And write me a message on Twitter if you run into trouble, but it's actually not that hard to install on a Mac or Linux. Windows, it can be a little challenging, but I think they've even solved that one now. Are there any other questions, or is there anything that somebody else wants to see? Like, we only had 20 minutes, so I had like way more, but I had to like smash it down into 20 minutes. So if there's stuff that folks are interested in, shoot me a message on Twitter. I mean, this is like probably like a 10-hour presentation.
Yeah, you did you showed a lot of information in a short amount of time. So I guess one last question. Adrian asked, what percentage would you say would be AI versus automation of your typical flow, and how are you handling security?
Oh, that's actually a pretty excellent question. So when I said I answered the first one, the security part. So when we use it at work, we generally have our security best practices in. As far as I'm a network engineer, we block 1918 addresses. We don't allow certain things to our firewalls or our VoIP systems, et cetera, et cetera. So generally our Cisco best practices combined with our business best practices, those always go into an agent as our heuristics of what kind of the rules of the role is. Now, how much of it is automation versus LLM? We use AI to actually build the automations, but ultimately we want the automations to take over from AI. I know that sounds kind of crazy. We use Claude Code to rapidly prototype automations that would have took us much longer before. And like I say, this is from a network engineer's perspective. But if you're doing PowerShell, if you're doing Linux, if you're doing, I mean, I'm using this on AWS too, and it's the same thing. We kind of get our prototyping done, and then we either build a workflow or we will build a smaller agentic workflow. And hold on, let's see this. Versus remain great, understand Docker things. I was scrolling through at the end. I didn't see where they were rolling up. Okay, I think that was the last one.
Yes, yes. Theo said, how can we get more fireside chats like these in the future?
But you're asking me.
Terrence is like, hey, my information is not a fireside chat. I need about 3 hours, Terrence is saying. So thank you so much, Terrence, for coming out. Thanks for showing us Claude Code, why everybody should learn it. Again, this is going to be a little bit more advanced, but the nice thing about AI is no matter where you are, you can literally just ask Claude, hey, how do I set this up? I'm interested in Claude Code. Like you said, what Terrence said, start small. I'm interested in learning Claude Code. Can you help me with like a small project, right? That's where a project would be good. Terrence, are you coming to GovTechCon in
I
person?
mean, I'm like 3 blocks away. I work 3 blocks away, so I guess you guys. I guess yeah. I'll show up. Yeah.
Okay. So Terrence should be there in person. So I'll make sure Terrence has a ticket so he's able to come. But Terrence, we appreciate you. If you can drop your LinkedIn in the chat, that'll be great. I don't know if you want people to follow you on Twitter too. I know
Oh
you
yeah, you
have
can
reached out to
follow.
me on Twitter.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter. I'll put my LinkedIn in the chat, and I'll put my LinkedIn and Twitter in the chat.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Terrence, for coming out, showing us all of this amazing information about Claude Code. Like I said, definitely was a little bit more advanced, but hey, you can learn it. So I wanted you all to see what's really happening with AI, and we got back to back technical talks. Thank you so much, Terrence. Thanks for coming out. And he's dropping his information in the chat, so you can go follow him on Twitter. He's always a wealth of knowledge. So follow him on Twitter, and then just get your hands dirty with Claude Code. Thank you so much, Terrence. Appreciate you.
Thanks. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. All right, all right. So we are headed into our last talk for the summit. And this is going to wrap up our summit. And I figured that we had to really like end it off with a bang, right? I don't know if you all know Tamika Reed. I feel like you might, if anybody's paying attention. Tamika Reed from Women in Linux. She is a wealth of information. I don't know what she's going to talk about tonight. I think your camera keeps turning on and off. Okay, cool. I don't know what she's going to talk about tonight, but you might have seen us already on my YouTube. Like one time we did like a little late night YouTube talk. We were talking for like 2 hours, but Tamika literally is the GOAT when it comes to Linux infrastructure. Also with GovTech, she's been in GovTech for a very long time. I'll let you introduce yourself, Tamika. Do you want me to do like a chat, or you have a presentation? You want to just
Man, I got a whole presentation.
Okay, well, I'm gonna let you take it then. I'm
And
gonna let you take it over.
yeah. So Tamika Reed, founder of Women in Linux, been in tech. I guess I've been in tech now 20 years. Probably dating myself, but whatever it is whatever. Uh, also been on the infrastructure side for that long. I actually got my degree in computer engineering. Uh, Started out with Cisco networking, so the whole thing with Claude was right up my alley. I have a use case for that as well. So it's cool to see. It's cool to see from my end. All right. So am I sharing my screen? Let's see. Let me get my screen shared here. All right, it should be sharing my screen. Let me know out there if my screen is up, and we should be good to go here. All right, yeah, we're good to go. Let me get the chat up here so I can see everything. Let me scroll. All right, cool. We're ready to go. All right, so like I said, Tamika Reed, Women in Linux. So the title of this slide, this slide deck, is skills for the next decade. Now, someone will probably come back and tell me it's false. You don't know what you're talking about. You have no idea this, that, and other. But I'm here to tell you, you can't have the cloud without infrastructure. You can't have the cloud without networking. You don't get anywhere with learning models without infrastructure. It is what it is. I just did a quick research over the last 2 years, not inclusive of 2025, 2023, and 2024. We spent $700 billion in data centers, and that's on the rise. That's consistently on the rise. We're not going to go back and some people are upgrading their data centers. Some people are just building out new data centers and they're keeping it pushing, right? All right. So what we're going to talk about tonight, your skills. So I want you to try to change your mindset. Uh, in understanding who you are as a person. You are a product. You have to have a product mindset as we enter into this arena of tech. And if you are an entrepreneur or looking to be a consultant, you have to understand that you are a product, right? You have roles. We're going to talk about government contracts and trends and companies that are currently hiring. All right, so you are the product. What do I mean about that? Well, typically most people follow scaled agile when we're talking about having a product mindset, but I'm looking at it from a perspective of who you are as a person. So, who you are as a person, your features these are your skill sets. What's unique about you? What do you bring to the table? What are the tangible outcomes that you have had? Like, have you saved a company money, or have you increased their revenue? What does that look like? So I'm trying to get you to understand as you prep for an interview. You need to understand the product that they're selling or the product that you're working on, and understand yourself as a product. How do you sell yourself to a company? You are a product. You're coming coming in to solve a problem. You provided a service, you may provide a solution, but that's what we're looking at. Customers, your customers for you as the product could be internal or external. And then again, your reputation. How do people see you? What how when you lead and when you leave that conversation, when you leave that interview, when you leave that conference, when you walk out, how do people perceive you? What can they count on you? Do you have a good reputation? Do you show up? Do you show up to the conference on time? Did you show up to the talk on time? Were you prepared? Do you have a way for people to contact you? All these things matter, right? Positioning, because you're always positioning yourself. You're positioning yourself to, it may not be, you may not get the job right now, or you may not get the call right now, but you're in place to receive that call. Are you mentally there? Are you looking at what's happening in the market and positioning yourself with your skill sets, your mindset, financially? Also, are you positioning yourself in the cities that actually are hiring? That's the other thing that we gotta be able to do, right? And what impact are you gonna provide, right? So when I say feedback and upskilling, I'm talking about continuous upskilling, and it doesn't have to always be technical. Your upskilling could be from the fact of you uh, actually hopping onto a panel and actually filling in on a panel and talking and learning how to communicate, how to project your voice, how to project your skill set, your positive feedback, and believe it or not, your attitude, your energy is also a thing, right? That's part of what you're putting out there, and hopefully you're receiving that back, right? All right, and packaging. How are we going to put this all together, right? From the resume to your portfolio to your conference talks to the conferences that you have been through to how you mentor people. How do we package all of this together, right? So remember, you are a product, and that product has to be sold, not told. You also receive ends, dividends from that product, right? All right. So I put this up here. You probably have never seen it before. I know you haven't because I just made it. Um, and I want to show you all of these are different cloud native tools, except for Red Hat, that are tangible things that you can go out and install right now that help you on your career journey. I know everybody has been talking about AI. They have been talking about cloud. They have been talking about data centers. They have been talking about building your career and so forth. What I'm showing you here is, as we start down here at the bottom, and this is really along the lines of your career. When you start here, you're starting with possibly virtual machines. You're probably starting with AWS Cloud, Google Cloud, what have you. And then as you move up this stack, you'll start to work on automation. You'll start to understand what a platform is. You'll start to understand what an AI platform is, and you'll start to understand monitoring. Now, when we talk about this, we gotta think of ourselves as each one of these layers, and we're increasing our skill set. We're also increasing our knowledge. We're also increasing our product mindset, and we're also increasing our value. And so along each one of these lines, you start to see as you move up what your potential is. So you can go, and I'm gonna hop over here to the next slide. You with those skill sets, you could be a Linux administrator, you could be a platform engineer, you could be a site reliability engineer, you could be an infrastructure engineer, a cloud engineer, a hybrid cloud engineer, a security engineer falling under ISSE, maybe CISSP. You can do AI and security. You can combine these things. You can put AI across all of these. You can put security across all of these. This is what we are looking at as we're talking about skill sets for the next 10 years. It's what I'm trying to show you. So, okay, let's continue. All right, engineer. And this is just when I say engineer, this is somebody who probably went out and got their Linux Plus. They probably went and got their RHCSA, possibly your RHCE. You might have taken the Security Plus. So this is where you start at. You'll have your basics of what a Linux admin is. You'll have some basics of what AI infrastructure is in terms of containers. You'll understand logging because this is really all of these right here come out of your RHCSA, and they also come out your LPIC or your Linux Plus class. And then you get down into edge computing, right? Edge computing, your phone, edge device, your laptop, an edge device, your tablet, an edge device, your car, an edge device, right? When you start looking across everything, you are already doing these things. You're already using products, and you are the product, and they are already using you as well, right? So keep that in mind. High performance computing, right? High performance computing, another subject that don't get talked about a lot. There's another little subject, digital signal processing. I didn't include that here, but that is another little subject. I think I just did a show on that on our meetup. And then across this, and when we're talking about this, just in understanding on the entry level government contracting, it really should be security and security compliance as we start to ramp up. All right. Now, I want you to notice I go from engineer to now we're hopping over to staff. Now, if we go back up, I start talking about upskilling. We're adding on layers. You don't forget your foundation. You add to your foundation. You don't forget your foundation. Just because you came from nursing, that doesn't mean that you don't have a foundation for tech. Just because you came from being a teacher, that doesn't mean you don't have a foundation for tech. We add skill sets to that. We add on skill sets, okay? So you may have to take some classes to upskill to get the terminology, to get the knowledge, but we add skill sets, okay? So now we're adding our next layer of skill sets to become a staff engineer. And I'm gonna pull it all together for you as we go through it. You'll like my numbers. I'm gonna pull it all together. All right. As we start going through and being a staff engineer, we're on the next level up, right? We're talking about, hey, I want to get into security hardening. I want to get into distributed training, Kubeflow, AI platforms, how to build an AI platform, what tool sets are needed, what hardware is needed. And I want you also not to forget that just because you have the cloud doesn't mean that somebody doesn't have a stack of servers sitting in a warehouse somewhere at a company site. So get your hands on hardware. You can buy like a Dell 910 off of eBay for $200. Like get your hand on some hardware. Get your hands dirty. Get some cuts and bruises on them. It's okay. You'll thank me later. All right. Edge computing. When we start talking about the edge, we're talking about low latencies, handheld radios. We're talking about someone out in the field that needs to communicate, walkie-talkies, those kind of things, right? High performance computing. We often find this when we're talking about research. When we're talking about, hey, I need to work on. We want to take in the medical field. We want to do research and discovery on something in the medical field, some type of chromosome. You can find this on natural language processing. When we talk about natural language processing, you wonder why you text on your phone and it already knows what you may be trying to say next, right? Predictive texting, right? Those things are what you see from high performance computing, but they've been around for decades. These technologies have been around for decades. Autonomous vehicles, everybody knows about that when we start talking about Teslas. And then really there should be security for RMS and FIPS compliance and classified environments. And each one of these levels, right, is always going to be security, like I said. Now, when we start getting into the principal, we start talking about you're even staff, you're going to show leadership capabilities, right? But now, when you start getting to principal, you could lead a team. or you could be a lead on a team, or you could be a go-to person on the team and not necessarily lead. That means you're a go-to person on the team, but you're not getting paid. But let me not digress. I want to showcase, like, when you start thinking about this, you start to thinking about strategies. You start to think about the big picture of things. You start to think about how we're connecting the dots and talking out. When I say talking out, you're talking to other customers. You're talking to internal customers. You may be introducing, you may be getting introduced to a new solution, and you got to figure out how that new solution works inside of what you're currently doing. So you're constantly thinking. It's almost like you're pushing yourself to be an architect, but not just quite yet, right? And then your distinguished engineer. Now, I put these titles out here because these titles matter in some instances, not all. I put these titles out here because if you're looking at government contracting, and you're looking at DoD, Air Force, whatever the case may be, you're going to see these titles: staff, principal, distinguished, and so forth. It's very rare you'll see distinguished. They usually bump you up to an architect, right? But again, now that distinguished engineer, a good example will be Kelsey Hightower. That distinguished engineer is really bringing in revenue. They understand the customer. They understand how to provide solutions to the customer. They understand how to sell to the customer. They listen to the customer. They're listening to the revenue. They're listening to the problems. If you can't provide a solution and you're not looking and always looking at providing a solution to the customer, whether they're internal, meaning your teammates, or maybe internal to another group inside the company, or external, then you're doing it wrong. And I'm telling you, when you start looking at it, change the mindset to have a product mindset. You're providing solutions. This is what it looks like, right? So we're starting here toward the left, where we start talking about kernel innovation contributing to some open source projects. When you start talking about zero trust and AI, when we start talking about how SRE thought leadership, AI enabled battle networks. We saw that with Claude AI, right? Well, and we could get really deep into this, where we are starting to use LLMs to say, hey, I got data coming in. That data is tagged, and based on my LLM, it knows what routes I can send data to, right? I can send that data to, because it starts to learn, right? Another one is high performance computing. The big thing after this is quantum computing, right? Everybody's talking about AI, but we've already deemed that quantum computing is a national threat. They're already dumping money into quantum computing, right? We're already doing it. Autonomous vehicles, and then shaping AI standards, shaping DoD standards, securities wrapped around that, and so forth. You start looking at that as a distinguished engineer. All right, so I went through and pulled government contracts that have been awarded right now, and what they're looking for on those contracts, right? CENTCOM is looking for AI scaling initiatives, expanding AI infrastructure. INDOPACOM AI are looking for AI for managing friendly forces. DoD and R&D is looking for edge computing, AI, and 5G integration. The Navy WEX Titus is looking for logistics and sustainment. Army Javelin production is looking for missiles procurement. And again, all the things that I have mentioned, all those roles, all those skill sets I have mentioned are all related to these. If you can't find a job in none of this, you're not looking. You're not studying, right? I'm telling you now, right? Army Lockheed, missile defense and production, Raytheon Next Gen Radar Defense, Raytheon Air Defense. When you think air defense, you're thinking, oh, okay, how do I defend myself in the air? I'm probably taking pictures. I'm probably getting sensors. I'm probably doing all these things. This is where you're looking at. This is what we're talking about. Base systems, submarine modernization, sensors, and look at Lockheed Martin, 10 billion for missile defense. Sensor system 474 million, and there's plenty of billions on this list that I've listed here. I just didn't pull them out. I just want you to understand who is hiring, what skill sets are they looking for, and you can go get those now and be employed for the next 10 years. And when I say the next 10 years, I mean literally the next 10 years. You're not going to just stay with just doing Linux. You're going to be Linux and then add a little skill set here. You're going to add some security. You're going to add these things. You're going to keep going. You're going to keep adding. You're going to keep evolving. Okay? And then the last one here, IT contract supporting veterans and health administration, right? All right. So key trends that I pulled out from this contract, right? From these contracts, right? This is what I mean. AI and edge computing central to the future of command and control, sustainment and modernization, prioritize missile defense and autonomous weapons drive major awards, sensor systems and IT modernization beyond combat systems. Again, I got sensors beyond my combat systems. How do I gather that information? How do I get that out there? And this is not just DoD work. You got to remember DoD has smaller contracts. So your small to medium sized companies, your medium to large companies, right? Depending on where you're at, you can go work for a small company. You can go work for a medium sized company. You know, remember, you got to think, how can I get in at a smaller company, work that, get my skill set up, and then jump ship and go to a larger company? You don't always have to start big. You can start small. It's okay. Nobody's gonna knock you because you went and got a job and they paid you 90,000 and they got you a clearance and you stayed there 2 years and you jumped ship and you got another job and it's paying you 140 to 150. You might have skilled up enough. You may talk, you may understand everything enough where you may skill up to 200,000. Who knows? Right? It's just, you just never know. Security and compliance, critical for Gov and DoD environments. All right, this is a little fuzzy, so I'm gonna bring this up on my thing here. So I think this is a little better. So let me back out here. Let me get this down because I didn't like how that looked. That looked crazy. Oops. All right, so here, I think that's a little better. So what I did was I went through, and let me bring it down a little bit so I can get it all on one screen here. I went through and I pulled out how your career trajectory can look, right? All right. So again, when we're looking at this, Linux system administrator, senior, staff, principal, I put tech lead, but you may not be a tech lead. It may switch over to you just being a lead. You may go from being a lead to a director and then to a VP. And sometimes VP and director kind of go hand in hand depending on the company, depending on the size of the company. But I put these numbers out here, and these are numbers that I just, me personally, I think are on the low end in some cases. But I'm just want you to understand how it could look, what the things could look like, what you can be doing, right? So you could be that senior Linux administrator, and I'm only speaking in the DoD terms. Outside of DoD, it could be something else. But when I say that, let me say I'm speaking only in GovTech. Let me say it that way. Senior Linux administrator, it can go from 80 to 120K, but it also could go from 120 to 150. I've seen it. It could be a staff that could be from 160 to 200, but it could be from 200 to 250. It depends on the contract. It depends on the size. It depends on how they bid that contract. It depends on if they really, really want you or not. It depends on a lot of things. But again, I'm just showing you what it could be, what they could be, right? All right, so let's get back over here and let's go from current slide. We saw that. All right, jobs. And so I just went and kind of I have a ton of them. I just went with some major names, but I also got some mid-sized companies as well too. But I just wanted to give you who's hiring and where they're at, right? So OpenAI, NVIDIA, Scale AI, Rescale, Cyro, Stack AI, Digital Ocean, and look what they're hiring for: GPU infrastructure architecture, cloud automation for AI systems, AI job orchestration, AI driven SRE platform, high performance computing, GPU cloud infrastructure, and they're all over the United States. I was just trying to pull back some names that you probably have never ever heard of, people that you never even talk to, wouldn't even consider. And then I didn't even really pull in the small to medium companies on this slide, but there's plenty of other small to medium companies that also are hiring that offer you that, I don't want to say that career trajectory, but the benefits as well, right? I'm all about get with the company and also get with the company that provides you benefits. When I say benefits, I'm not talking about the 3%, the 6% of your 401k. I'm talking 12%, 25% into your 401k. I am talking about you being able to have the company contribute to your 401k 25,000, 30,000, 40,000 from the jump versus you waiting for uh you to build up that 3%, 6%. But it's all about being strategic. It's all about having the right skill set, and it's all about understanding who the major players are, right? All right, so call to action. This is my call to action to you, right? My call to action to you is continuous learning in Linux AI systems, because Red Hat has OpenShift AI, they have Linux AI, quantum computing, compliance. These are my non-negotiables. You have no choice, right? You're either going to get in or you're not. And I'm only speaking from infrastructure. I can only talk from infrastructure, which is going to give you your 10 years, right? Then inside of all of that, you need to be looking at on-prem, cloud, and edge. On-prem, cloud, and edge. Everybody in the comments, write one of these: on-prem, cloud, and edge. If you write it, you'll remember it. On-prem, cloud, and edge, right? And then the career growth requires a deep technical mastery of system design and industry influence. This is your career. You're gonna pick one thing at some point in your career that you're gonna be really, really good at, and then you'll dive off into that. But you may follow the T square when you're talking about this. And then when I say the T shape, you may follow the T shape, meaning you may have a broad information here, and then you may go very deep in one level. So in one thing, and that one thing may be AI on the edge. It may be Linux on-prem. It may be quantum at the edge. It may be compliance on-prem. You can switch this up however you want to, right? And then the next 10 years, engineers who operate across AI, high performance computing, edge, quantum, autonomy, or are the ones and meet the government security requirements will lead the field. You will always be employed, right? I'm not making this up. There's nothing here I said should not shock you, but this is where we're at. All right, that was it for me. I hope I made my time. I hope I did my time.
No, that was amazing. That was amazing. Does anybody have questions for Tamika before we wrap? I know everybody's like, we need more time with Tamika. We need to be able to talk to Tamika more. I want more. I told him to go watch our old lives that we've done. I told him to go watch the interview that I did with you on Day of My Tech Life. But somebody put some questions in the Q&A box if you have questions for Tamika. Let me see. Camila said, I'm a front end / mid stack dev with 10 plus years of experience with a BS in psychology. Do you recommend me going into a bridge program to obtain a master's degree in CS to start switching to infrastructure?
No, you could switch to infrastructure without getting another degree. You could switch to infrastructure, really just learning Linux or some type of cloud cert if you wanted to. You don't have to do that. But but I want to say this, it really depends on how you learn. If you know that you're not good at sitting at home, opening up a computer and self-studying, don't do it. Don't set yourself up for failure. Go attend somebody's class. That's all I'm gonna say. Like I think people have to have some type of realistic expectation of who they are and how they study. I know I'm not good. I'm not good at sitting and studying on my own. I got to be in somebody's class.
Yeah, so understanding your learning style is extremely important. It's very important. Somebody else asked in the chat, how do you get started with Linux if you have like no Linux background, no Linux experience?
Oh yeah, so to get started with Linux is really simple. There's multiple ways. So I'll say this. A lot of people don't like this suggestion. Go get you a free cloud email. Go get your free email. Go sign into AWS. Go get you a sign in, spin up a Red Hat Linux box, and then go to the RH 024 class, and it's free, and play around with the commands there. And here's why I say that, because now it's free. You're not sitting up here trying to figure out if I got a virtual machine, did I spin it up right on my box, my virtual box, or VMware workstation, or you may not have the capacity to do it or whatnot. So I just say that's just an easy way to quickly ramp up. If you're technical, if you're savvy, hey, go grab VMware workstation or go grab VirtualBox. If you just type in RH024, it comes right up. It's free. They walk you, it's an hour and 30 minutes for the class. They walk you through it. There's an instructor there. You'll learn some basic commands and see if you like it. And then if you spin up a Red Hat EC2 instance, you can follow along with him in the class on the commands and just see if you like it. You may not even like it. It's just that simple.
Yeah, that's something else to talk about too, right? We talked about a lot of things today and over the summit, right? Everything's not for everybody. So you have to start learning. You have to start go on YouTube, right? Look and see if this is something that you want to do. Do a lab. See if it's something that you actually want to stick to, right? Everything sounds cool. I talk about this all the time. Everybody wants to do cybersecurity. I get it. It's popular, but there are more tech fields and so many different tech niches that you can get into outside of cybersecurity. And cybersecurity is like implemented into every tech field at this point now anyway. So you don't have to just say, hey, I want to be a SOC analyst or cybersecurity engineer. You can look at different ways. And then also, let me see. Somebody asked on YouTube, what if you come from a Windows infrastructure side of the house? I'm guessing they're asking how can they get into this type of infrastructure if they have a Windows background?
Listen, if you got a Windows background and you haven't touched Linux, that means your organization probably behind. But but I want to say if you want to do that, so when you go online and look, especially if you're like on Indeed or LinkedIn, you'll see system administrator and then you'll see Linux as system administrator. If it says system administrator, that means they want somebody with Windows and Linux. And if it says Linux administrator, they're just strictly Linux. Why am I saying that? I am saying that because you can take your Linux box and make your Linux box authenticate and act like a Windows box. So that's how I actually got started. I actually got started with trying to make my Linux box act like my Windows box. And so when I started doing that, I got into LDAP, I got into Triple SD, I got into NFS shares, SIF shares. I got into all of that. So you'll start going down the rabbit hole if you start doing that. If you try to make your Linux box act like your Windows box, trust me, by the time you get done, you'll be like, "Oh, I can do this Linux stuff." And that's coming from a background of someone who has Windows behind them because now you understand Active Directory and LDAP and how things work.
We have another question on YouTube. Admin said, if I have the CISSP and the CCSP security certifications, would I be able to apply and get some of these jobs? I have 20 years of infrastructure experience.
That's why I put ISSE. So you would probably go along the lines of securing infrastructure, securing containers, monitoring infrastructure from that perspective. And when I say monitor infrastructure, I'm not talking about Zabbix or Splunk or what's the other one? Zabbix, Splunk, and there's another one that just escapes my mind right now. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about being able to go into a Kubernetes cluster and understand how to apply policies and secure it. That's where your bread and butter is going to be at, especially when you start talking about you want to be in the realms of AI and quantum. How do I secure my infrastructure? How do I secure those containers? Yes, you have the CISSP, but how can I take that and apply that to infrastructure across AI? And the way you're going to probably do that is become an ISSE when it comes to that.
Nice, nice. And I'll just do a couple more questions, but I think this one's really good. She said, Thelma said, love that you're speaking with such conviction. What informed your knowledge or what drives your confidence in the future of tech being in AI, Linux, quantum, etc.?
Because I'm in the field. Uh, I do this every day. I'm reading every day. I just signed up for my sans.org class, my 545 class for Gen AI and security. I am touching this every single day. I read every day. I have alerts that come to me about what's going on every single day, and I see the movement. Not only do I see the movement, I relate that back to stocks. I relate that back to how companies are which companies are growing. Like INOQ getting ready to purchase a company. Well, and then IONQ may get purchased. So now we're starting to really see AI and quantum start to marry each other with internal to companies. Like so, I keep up with this stuff every single day. So it's not a blind side to me. It's just like, oh, that's what they're doing. Okay, when then you'll start to filter and see that come down to your local governments and so forth. So I'm just a reader of stuff every single day.
Um, let's see. So somebody asked, what is Women in Linux? Is it a nonprofit? Do you provide Linux training, scholarship? Is it only for women? Can men do it?
Yeah, so we got men in the group. We are a nonprofit and we do training. In particular, I stick with the Red Hat as my thing. So when I say Red Hat, I stick with RHCSA, RHCE, OpenShift, OpenStack, because that's just what I see across the industry. In particular, in the government space, if you step outside the government space, you may get somebody that care about OpenStack, more so OpenShift. Delta is a big proponent of OpenShift. The Navy uses OpenShift, so it's a lot of people that are using OpenShift. Do I do training? Yep, I do training. You know what, Simone, you didn't even know I was gonna do this. Let's do it. Um, let's go ahead and give away two RHCSA, um, two RCSA exams.
Two vouchers?
Yeah,
That's a big giveaway.
yeah. Let's do it. Let's
Okay,
do it.
okay. We'll
Let's
we'll do
do
it inside the Discord. So
it.
we'll do it in the Discord. Make sure y'all join the Discord and we'll do the giveaway there because there's a giveaway thing and people can just sign up and it picks somebody automatically.
Okay.
So do it in the gift. We'll do it in the Discord and I'll reach out to you and tell you who the two people are.
All right, cool. I got two other people that I gotta give away to from 2 weeks ago. I haven't forgot them. So yeah, so we'll do that. We'll see. We'll see who really about it, right? You either gonna sink or swim. You gonna either study or not.
Right, definitely, definitely. Let me see. I'm gonna see if we have any other questions that relate to here. Um, I guess I have a one question. This would be the last one for us to wrap up before we wrap up the summit. Do you feel like anybody can learn Linux and anybody can really thrive over the next 10, 20 years if they apply what you're talking about, right? Learning Linux skills, moving up in your career, right? And then as you start to move up in your career, right? Different levels of engineers, and then also getting on either these different contracts or different companies. Do you think anybody can really do this?
I think anyone can do it, but you need to know how to network as you do it, and you need to understand where the money is flowing, right? You hear Space Force moving to Huntsville. You need to be looking at why Space Force moving to Huntsville, what they're doing over there, what's happening. Is there opportunity for you? Do you need to skill up? What does that look like? Who's on the Space Coast over on Cape Canaveral, right? What does that look like? So you can do it, but you're gonna have to be hungry to do it. Now, if you're one of the ones that's like, you know what, I just want to go to work and go home, and I just got my RHCSA and I'm good on that, and I don't want to do nothing else, your time may be limited because it's gonna be someone that's gonna come in and they're gonna get to it, right? Um, but you gotta be continuously learning and teaching. I can't stress enough, the more you teach, the better you become. Again, you become a better product. Let me say it from that perspective. Because now you start to understand how people receive you, what they're looking for, how and when to strike, right? When to strike and ask for that raise, when to strike and ask for that class, when to strike and ask for, hey, I was thinking about I want to go overseas. Saw you had some positions open and fits my skill set. What you thinking? I can be ready in a month. What you thinking? Let's try it, right? So I think the more people learn, the more they should teach. And you can't go teach someone who's not interested. Don't waste your time. Teach someone who's hungry and willing to sit down with you and take that 30 minutes. They're willing to sit down and go that hour. They're willing to sit down and be up all night long with you to get into it, to get it up and get it running. That's where you're at.
Definitely, definitely. And then so just so people can leave and know how to find this information themselves, we got one question on YouTube. How do you like what outlets do you use to find this type of information that you're finding? I kind of have an idea.
So yeah, so I look at everything. So I look at uh GovWire, um I have filters come to me on my phone and on my tablet. I also look at the business journal. I also look at your local newspapers tell you a whole lot of what's going on in your area. Your city plans also tell you what's going on in your area. And then just being in the meetings, just always listening. Just like when somebody says, "Hey, we're looking to do, we're looking to build a private cloud." You got to think to yourself, what are they talking about? What are they trying to use? What does that look like? Do I have the skill set? No. What? How can I get the skill set? Let me go find out what I can use for it. Let me install it. Just always be listening and always learning.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah. So you just everybody in here, you have to be a lifetime learner. And then also the way that you start to know what's happening in the industry, you have to just keep looking, right? With Space Force moving to Huntsville, that should have been like dead obvious. Like, hey, that's where the money is headed, that's where work is headed. This has been in the works for almost 2 years now. We've been talking
Hmm.
about Space Force is going to be moving. This has been in the work for a while, right? So you got to start paying attention to the bigger business side of things that are happening, people moving, companies getting acquired, like you said. Also, when you start looking at the job sites, right? I think when AI started getting more popular, maybe about a year ago, if you looked on clearance jobs and you typed in AI, it was only a couple of roles. You go on a clearance jobs and you search AI now, most roles are asking for you to have some type of AI knowledge in some form or capacity, right? So you just have to pay attention to what's happening around. And the only way you're gonna do it is if like, you're actually interested in it, or if you continue to like follow people like me and Tamika, tune into our lives when we're literally giving you all the information on what's happening right now in GovTech and what's happening in tech in general, and just how you can continue to grow and thrive. So Tamika, is there anything else that you want to leave them with before we head off?
Mm, just know that um read up on companies and what they're doing, and if they have a product, or if they're, and I said this before, you're either a builder or maintainer. And so you need to figure out which side of the coin works for you. Either you're gonna build some infrastructure or you're gonna maintain some infrastructure. Nothing wrong with being a maintainer. You just are not using your creative flows there. But if you're a builder, you're using your creative flows, and you're working towards building something new, innovative, and so forth. So you got to pick the side that you want to be on. And the last but not least, I would say this. Um, Everyone is saying a lot of people getting laid off. We see that, right? But didn't they just offer those folks over at the jump ship over from OpenAI 100 million on for sign-on bonuses? And one of them got offered 1.4 billion.
Yep.
So what we talking about, right?
Yeah. I
The
mean,
build.
even the programs you were talking about before, right? That whole list of all those programs, all of those different sectors, you have to follow. I always say you got to follow the money.
Yep.
Wherever the money's flowing, there's always a bull market somewhere. That's like a stock term, but there's always a market that is doing well, right? So if you all go back and watch the replay on YouTube, or if you took some screenshots, all of those different sectors that Tamika was talking about, right? Like signal intelligence, air defense, modernization, next generation AI of whatever type of platform, right? Cloud infrastructure, AI infrastructure, that's where the money's headed. Data centers, that's where the money's headed. So you got to make sure that you're positioning yourself to be able to outlast, what's happening, just because, tech is changing quickly.
Yep. And I mean, the numbers I show may look like a lot, but it's not a lot to some people. It's not a lot to some people. When you start talking about your Netflix and so forth and so on, that's totally different, right? So I just want people to, I know some of you are beginners, and I don't want you to get caught up on the money. I want you to get caught up on skills, because the skills pay the bills forever. So yeah, you don't have to worry about if you're gonna go to Dubai or if you can go to Italy or whatnot. You got the money to do it, or you're working on a contract that's gonna send you. Right? That's it.
Cool, cool. Thank you so much, Tamika. So everybody, make sure y'all go subscribe to Tamika, Women in Linux on YouTube. Yes, if you're a man, you can get in, get involved, right?
Yep.
But women in Linux on YouTube. Tamika's a great wealth of knowledge. She's been doing this for a long time, has a lot of great information, and we definitely appreciate you for coming out, Tamika. So if you want to continue to keep getting information like this, definitely make sure you grab your GovTechCon ticket, right? This was our free summit. but we're having GovTechCon. It's starting on, if you come virtually, it's starting on Friday. But if you're coming in person in DC, we start on Thursday. So make sure you get your ticket. It's 50% off. For virtual tickets, $50. In person is $250, right? So make sure you come out. We have AWS coming out to recruit. We have the Defense Intelligence Agency coming out to recruit. And we have a lot of great knowledge and a lot of great GovTech professionals that are coming out and going to be in the room, and you should definitely be there. So I appreciate everybody for coming out. Make sure you join the Discord, because again, we're going to do that giveaway, right? So if you want to be entered into the giveaway for the RHCSA voucher, we're giving away two. Tamika's giving away two. Make sure you join the Discord, get in there. I'll put the giveaway link in there, and then that way y'all can enter. So I appreciate y'all. Let me drop the link for your tickets. Let us know in the Discord if you got your tickets. Let me know in the chat if you got your tickets. Well, yeah, I appreciate y'all. Have a good night.